Alright, so part 3 of the series of videos where I recreate the sounds of old school death metal. And why? Well, if you saw part 1 or 2, you should know why. And if you haven't, click on this card right here, so this way it can take you to those videos. Besides, they are actually really cool. So on part 1 I took you to Morrisound, where I did my best in order to try to create a Frankenstein of something a la early death. Something, let's say, in between maybe human and leprosy. And then on part 2 I took you to Europe, where I did my best to follow the blood trail of the mighty Swedish old school death metal scene. Now I'm kind of running out of scenes, so to speak. So for this episode I'm taking a different approach. I'm going to focus on a specific band. They basically took the sound of death metal to another level. Faster, more aggressive, more technical. And for this episode I'm following the steps of none other than the mighty Suffocation. So, same era, back to Florida, back to Morrisound, back to working again with Scott Burns. And the specific sound that I'm after is Effigy of the Forgotten. And why? Well, because in my humble opinion, I think that death metal just wouldn't be the same without this beast of an album. I mean, I still listen to this thing today and I'm like, man, god damn it, what a great album. But I would have loved to be a metalhead back then, 1991, and just have a listen to this thing straight out of the oven. I think I would have just shit my pants, honestly. And if you actually bought this record in 1991, just please let me know down in the comments what was your reaction. So music-wise, this album like literally made the mold for the, you know, brutal technical death metal that we have nowadays. I mean, just Mike Smith's playing is just fucking insane. And that duo of the slamish riffing and ear-piercing leads of Turn Hobbs and Mike Smith drumming is beautiful, insane orgy of double kicks, blast beats and palm mutes. And the other thing is that it's almost surgical how tight this thing sounds. And the crazy thing is that Suffocation is one of those bands that if you haven't seen them live, they actually do a better job than in the albums. And that by itself, it's already a crazy thing to say, but it's actually true. The sound, yes, this is where opinions get a bit divided. There are, let's say, two groups of people, kind of, saying that Effigy of the Forgotten, musically it's, you know, a beast of an album, yet the mix or maybe the sound is like messy and people don't like how that thing was mixed. Well, the other group of people, I'm there, who think that the music is absolutely brilliant and the sound is just brutal as fuck. But that doesn't go without saying that the mix has a few things that technically are a bit distracting. So you could say that the guitars tend to lose a lot of clarity all over the album, especially on the tremolo picking parts. The bass response is just basically absorbs the entire mix, is like not very well controlled. The drums are like, bam, man, right on your face, almost making everything like mushy. Once again, technically speaking, all of those things are true. Yet, I believe that in those flaws lies the beauty of this album. And a clear, you know, sign of people not actually liking this album was the decision of Roadrunner to record the following album, Breathing the Spawn, on another studio, which resulted in Suffocation's worst album ever, sound-wise. Effigy has a few things here and there, but that thing, man, the guitar tone varies from song to song. The whole production feels weak, underpowered. It almost sounds like a different band altogether. So much that in a way of redemption, Suffocation included little by little songs of Breathing the Spawn in future releases. Now, on that same note of, you know, producers and early death metal, I still believe that to this day, Scott Burns has been the producer, engineer that has been able to capture, mix and produce death metal in the most honest way. And what I mean by that is that, well, once again I'm going to be repeating my same mantra of bitching about death metal modern production. I think that death metal shouldn't be treated as a product. I think that death metal should be approached like a wild feral beast. The goal isn't to tame it. The goal is to control it just enough so it doesn't kill everyone in the room. And in a way, I think that that's kind of the same approach that Scott Bourne's used with the albums that he produced. Alright, so in order for me to be able to technically reproduce this sound, there's a few things that I need to take into consideration. The drums, they have to be on your face. Super punchy, click sounding kicks. The snare and kick are going to be like the starts of the show, only being dethroned by the toms when a fill kicks in. For the guitars, I'm almost sure that they use the Ampeg VH140. I don't have that amp yet. I did found a Crate 130 profile, which I'm actually using with the Neural amp modeler. And if you don't know, that Crate is basically a copy of the Ampeg 140. Now, for the bass, this is only providing the foundation, lower registry, so basically just a fairly clean bass should suffice. Now for the voice, you need something low, guttural, with a bitey treble that only Frank Mullin can do, so I'm fine. And for the guitar tone, you need to make that thing boomy, piercing on the high end, while basically declaring war against anything mid-range. And that's pretty much it. The rest is just EQing by ear, leveling by ear, making sure that everything sounds as close as possible to the album. Easier said than done. So let me take you behind the curtains so I can show you everything that I use, how I mixed everything, and how I did the master. Since what I'm basically trying to mimic is an analog recording, what I have here on most of the tracks is, you will see these two things, console and Frank CS. Console is basically just an emulation, this actually is a free plugin, by Analog Obsession, and this is going to, let's say, mimic the pre-section-ish of a channel strip. But this is basically what the signal is hitting first. Then I have the Frank CS, this is another free plugin, and this is a regular channel strip. So you have the EQ section, and then we have a built-in compressor and some options to basically this is going to mess with the tone. So now I have hiccups. That's awesome. And then right after that I have the Ozone Vintage tape emulation plugin. You can use free. I really like what this was doing, which is not something very dramatic. Then for the main or the master bus, right before sending that to the master channel, I am using another tape emulation. I'll show you in a little bit, but then you'll understand why it's different and why I'm not using the same thing. Obviously the settings for the tape emulation is the exact same for every single channel. So basically the only thing that you have to keep in mind is to think as, the routing or the plugin, the order of the plugins as if this was actually an analog console going to an external recorder or a tape recorder. This is the entire mix. You can see that there's like not a lot of channels. I tried to keep things as simple as I could. Let's start with the voice. Basically, it's only one mono channel, and I played with some panning, and then only on a few parts here and there, actually on just like 2 lines of the entire song, I added some stereo effects, basically recording the same thing twice and then just adding one part to the left, one part to the right. Here's where I struggled a little bit. Oh yeah, this episode just got a lot sexier. It's literally 42 degrees out there. Luckily I have the AC on, but I have no AC here on the vocal booth. It is very hot. So, this is the part that I was dreading the most, where I'm about to record vocals. And that is because I want to sound like Frank Mullin. Honestly, I have a hard time with growls. So I already wrote the lyrics, but I haven't even tried to, find a way to sing this. So, but I'm gonna give it a try.
Knowledge, seeking for answers, craving for wisdom. Knowledge, seeking for answers, craving for wisdom. Knowledge, seeking for answers, craving for wisdom. Reach all commands, fire turns black. Portals open wide, black figures are eyes. None shall disturb the sleep of the mighty ones. Swift consoles built up to it, as rolled down the aisle.
So this is actually the first time that I record like this type of low guttural vocals, and actually to be like the first time, I'm pretty happy with the results. So vocals, let me show you the raw vocals without any processing whatsoever.
Somebody means not from the south, also the sick, truth will fall.
I recorded the vocals using an SM57 with an external pre, and that is this thing you cannot see right now, but I'll put it on the screen. That is the Golden Age audio, Golden Age Project Audio Pre-73 Junior, which is basically mimicking a Nave type of pre.
Knowledge taking over us, craving for wisdom, contact from an
I have to tweak it quite a bit to get the effect that I was going after, but what I'm using is this disgusting thing. I love it. And this is the Rat Shack electronic reverb, which is emulating one of those, what's the name of that store in the US? And it was like a crappy reverb, but I love how this thing sounds. For old school death metal type of vocals, and for death metal, I don't know, this thing is really great because they have like this microphone thing which adds like a whole lot of distortion, and it's like more of a, it's not a reverb per se, it's more of a like reverb delay-ish type of thing. Then I'm sending this to two separate delays. One of them is basically acting almost like a reverb. For that, I'm using this thing, my go-to delay, honestly. This is basically adding like a bit more of, some sort of reverb type of thing. Let me show you how that thing sounds.
knowledge taking over us, craving for wisdom, contact from an world.
Almost tell that the thing is actually doing something, but it's like adding this tiny bit of tail that blends really good in the mix. And then I have an automation delay, which is this guy here, and I'm using that as an automation for some specific parts. Let me show you. And it's a ping pong analog type of thing. So basically that's it for the vocals. I think that the only thing that I'm doing is I have a high pass filter somewhere. The only thing that I'm doing here is just adding a high pass filter. This is for the vocals to to pop right into the mix, and that's it. So now let's take a look here at the drums. And for the drums, I'm using Ugritone's old school death metal. Obviously, because this thing is actually tailored to give you that sound, that 90s Morrisound type of sound. So this is like the go-to tool if you want to get that type of drums. So obviously this was a no-brainer. I've used this before on some other projects. I really like this plugin. It has so many options that you can tweak, and I really like that. For this, I think I'm using some of the, I'm using here the Tampa default. I played here a little bit with the settings. It has like some sort of different type of like mic configurations, and then it has like effects here. This is really cool. But anyways, this is what I use for the drums. And if we solo here the drum boss, it has like that very punchy, aggressive, almost bassy type of sound, which is exactly what I was going for. I didn't get the kick to be as clickety, typewriter type of sound as you can hear on Effigy of the Forgotten, because I was very happy with how that thing was sounding, like giving a whole lot of punch and like humph of bass or something. For the snare, I actually added a second instance of the same plugin, but I only copied the MIDI for the snare. So I, introduce a different type of kit, and then I play a little bit. I mix them both until I got something that I wanted. And the two of them sound something like this. This is like the main snare. Then I added something that would like mimic like the bottom snare, which is adding like some sort of piccolo type of snare sound. Then when I mentioned that I was using something kind of like parallel compression, but not quite, is because this plugin, the Ugrytones Old School Death Metal, if you can, for example, if I open here an instance, you'll see that right here, you have like an effects channel, saturation channel, and you can choose from different type of saturations. And then here on the mixer, you can select the amount of effects send that you want to have for every single kit, for every single piece of kit, toms, whatever. So I routed this so this could go to a separate channel, like not to go inside the same channel, which is something that I find really cool. For example, if you open here like routing, you have here like the direct mic goes to channel 5, overheads channel 10, room channel 11. So you can route this thing like the FX channel input to go to a separate channel, and I did exactly that so that I could use that as some sort of parallel type of compression. So I have basically a separate channel where I have the saturation for the snare, toms, and kick, and that is this thing. Then the bass is also quite simple. The only thing that I'm doing is just compressing the thing, constantly throughout the entire track, like maybe 3 dBs or something. So I can get, like a thick, constant sausage of a bass. Now here's where it gets a bit interesting, because normally I was only planning to have 2 guitars, but then I noticed that the more I started to listen to Effigy of the Forgotten, it had like this type of messy sound, and by messy I say that in a good way, that you can find on guitars that had been quad track, meaning that you have 2 guitars on the right, 2 guitars on the left. So what I did is that mostly on parts where you have like the tremolo peaking and the fast palm muted parts, that all of that has been quad tracked. But when I got to some leads or some parts that were a bit more precise, then I just switched to 2 guitars left and right. So let me show you a little bit of that. Obviously, in order for me to be able to deal with the volume changes, some automations had to be done volume-wise. So these are the parts that have obviously been quad tracked here and here. I think it gives like a whole lot of more like body and chaos in a good way to the mix. For the guitars, everything is basically hard pan left and right. As I mentioned before, this is what I'm using. I'm using a profile of a Crate 130 here for the neural amp modeler. That is because obviously I don't have a Ampeg BH140, which I would love to own, but I don't have one. So this is the next best thing. I tried to get or to find actually a profile, a BH 140 profile, but I wasn't successful. So for the IR, for the cap, I'm using once again, thanks to Ugrytone, they have a specific, they have their own IR loader, which is this thing, and they have a IR packs specifically for the old school death metal thing. And they have some presets some presets that they got like from All Deicide, Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, and there's one for Suffocation. It's not one that was tailored specifically for Effigy of the Forgotten, but apparently for the Spice the Sun album, which is this thing that is called the Spice, the Catatonia. And it's fairly similar. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this thing. This is like the super scooped Scott Burns type of EQ curb. Basically, I took this from a forum, and actually from quite some forums, and they basically agreed on the same frequencies. That was a huge dip here around 901K, and then a bit of a bump around 5K. So let me show you how that thing affects the guitars. in order for the solo to pop up, I didn't use like the same neural lamp profile. I used this by Mercurial, which is basically a Metal Zone clone. Since everything is like super scooped, I was like, you know what? So what I have here is reverb. I'm sending that reverb to a delay, and that's it. The reverb is just a plate reverb. What I'm using is a free plugin by, I forgot the name, but it's like this dragonfly, I'm sorry, butterfly. What I'm using for the solo, is it? It is. So it's just a plate reverb. And then I'm sending that to a fairly long delay, and everything together sounds something like this. That's pretty much it. So let me just show you what I'm using here on the master tape bus that I have here. I'm routing everything to this channel. This is why I called it the master tape. And once again is using a pre-emulation, which is the same console plugin, the Frank CS. And then this is where it gets very interesting. I like this thing because it's quite specific. You can mess around with this thing, like there's so many parameters that you can mess with this thing. And what I really like this for is to add like that final tape feel to the entire mix. You would have to spend quite a lot of time tweaking things here, because if you exaggerate just a little bit some parameters, things are going to start to lose character, or to exaggerate some things that you don't want in the mix. So you're going to need quite a bit of time tweaking this thing. But anyways. So there's obviously a volume difference, but you can see that volume difference is more on the mids and on the lows. And I think that this is like the last brush in the mix, like literally, that will give you that final tape feel to the mix. And then for the master, I don't even want to call this like a master session or anything, because I added once again the tape emulation, but you'll see here that this is like the dry wet. I'm only adding just a little bit here. And then once again, using the console thing here, I added just a tiny bit of low, a tiny bit of high, and that's it. Then I'm using once again the vintage tape emulation here. And what I did is ended up adding a bit more of the high end. And finally, I just added some compression. With this, I ended up just doing like more of a glue master, just to basically join things together a little bit, compressing things. Basically adding just a tiny bit of frequencies that I think were missing, like mostly high end, and that's it. There you have it. That's my love letter to Suffocation and to technical brutal death metal and old school death metal. So let me know what you think of the song and the mix and the general feel down in the comments. I must say that I had a lot of fun mixing this. Honestly, there wasn't a lot that I had to dramatically twist and tweak in order to get the sound that I was going after. Honestly, I was surprised of how quickly things fell into place. I just had to, fine-tune a few things, a few parameters here and there. But the general and overall feel was there since, I think, day one. This is the third part of this series of videos. If you haven't seen part 2 or part 1, you can just go ahead and click this card. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. So if you feel like going the extra mile in supporting what I'm doing here, you can actually buy me a beer. Or you can click that super thanks button down below. In the description of this video, I'm going to leave my Buy Me a Coffee profile. Once again, thank you so much for your support and for watching this video. I hope that you had a kick-ass weekend. Stay safe and see you on the next recreated old school death metal video.